Okay, welcome to, is this episode 6?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, okay, of Q Chats. Welcome back. Thanks for listening. We're here with James Warden,
Yo.
self-proclaimed vegan activist. So can you just tell us a bit about yourself, mate?
Yeah, so as of recent, the past 6 months, the organisation that I co-organise, Direct Action Everywhere, has been in the media a fair bit. We run non-violent direct action here in Perth in advocacy for animal rights. I haven't been in Perth for all that long. I've been here for a couple of years. I've been a vegan for 2 years. I've been what most would classify as an activist or an advocate for animals for the past 8 months.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Cool, okay. And you've gone pretty hard with your activism, haven't you, mate? Probably more than most people, yeah?
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely necessary to do so.
Necessary to do so, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Fair enough. Can you just give us a bit of background to your journey to activism then, and to believing that veganism is the right way to go?
Yeah, sure. So 2 questions there. That what actually got me sort of hinged on animal rights and veganism was ritualistic slaughter. So it started from seeing halal slaughter, 2.5, 3.5 inch blades, slit the throat, bismillah with an imam over the food. I thought that was absolutely horrific. I extended that to how we're killing, slaughtering, murdering animals en masse here in Australia and all around the world. I found that it didn't align with my moral agency, although my actions were different. So that's how I went to veganism. That sort of extended to animal rights activism when I saw a massive amount of distress from cattle on a death truck that was on their way to slaughterhouses in Brisbane, and I saw the repeat of trucks driving to the slaughterhouse full and driving back empty on the Lockyer Highway. That impeded on my well-being. I thought, this is absolutely catastrophic. These animals are dying, they're silenced, nobody's hearing their voices. They do have voices, but they're silenced. From that point, I decided more needs to be done, this needs to stop. I found that a lot has been done and a lot is being done, and I wanted to partake in social change, making animals' voices heard.
Do you think that there's been in recent times an upheaval of vegan activism?
Yes.
Do you think that because to me it's definitely been in the media a lot more than I can recall from previous years?
I'd say it's hard to think back 10 years ago because I was in 11.
Yeah.
But vegan and veganism as a household name, I think, hasn't been around for maybe 5-10 years. But everyone, if you were to say the word vegan, no one bats an eye. I have to say it's only been that long, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten a lot of media attention of recent, and you're not too shy to media attention, are you, mate? You've been in the news quite a bit lately. I think I even saw you on Lad Bible the other day.
Yeah, I think so.
That's how you know you've made it.
I usually get reports from other people sending me through articles, and I'm like, okay, I just sort of scroll through them, have a quick glance, and I continue on. I've been absolutely smashed and inundated through international news parties, podcasts like yourselves, and I seldom turn down the opportunity to advocate for animal rights and bring about the dialogue of speciesism, because I think you make an interesting point, is that throughout history it's not been recognised what's happening, but as the necessity is removed to consume animal products, it becomes a moral imperative of us to make change and not to act immorally and consume animals.
Why is it immoral to consume animals?
I guess it comes from the golden rule: do unto others as you wish to be done unto yourself. And these animals are sentient beings. They have a first-person subjective reality. They have self-awareness. They have the ability to distinguish themselves from their environment. They have the ability to perceive pain in the same way that we do. So if we were put in that experience, we would feel exactly the same. And as myself as a moral subjectivist, I believe that is morally inadequate.
So if someone morally thought that you're wrong,
sure,
why are your morals more moral than their morals?
So if you're where you classify your morals and where those are derived, my moral conviction comes from an axiom, which is a fundamental belief, which is well-being. I believe that the consequence of my actions in impeding on the positive rights of other beings is what creates a moral conviction or lack of moral conviction. So if somebody has a moral conviction to destroy and create chaos and entropy throughout the world, I believe that's an immoral act. I don't believe in an objective morality. I believe everybody has their own subjective morality. And to say the least, I'd say that resonates with most people within the public. And I believe us acting the way we do is conforming to public will. Nobody wants to see a pig have their throat slit open or gassed. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to see the electronic immobilization of chickens. Nobody wants to see cattle captive bolt gunned in the head and screaming for their lives. So I'd say that my moral conviction resonates with a large percentage of the public, except the way that my morals align with my actions is more, you could say, sufficient over those that don't.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough.
You say sufficient. How do you mean sufficient?
So, in the sense that I would say that it is ineffective to have a moral conviction of assigning right and wrongdoing to a being, so for instance a chicken, and to say I believe that it's morally wrong to consume chickens, but I'll do so anyway because I have social indoctrination and manipulation to make me believe that it's okay to do so.
I would disagree on the social indoctrination point.
Sure.
I do to an extent, yes. Like eating meat is a cultural thing, but at its core, I think it's a natural thing. I do believe that. I agree that. We were speaking before. Like I do have I'm transitioning vegan tendencies, and I would say social indoctrination was potentially a part of eating animal products or consuming animal products in general. But I do think that if you look at the world naturally, take humans out of the equation, there are still animals eating animals.
Sure.
So I think it's interesting you say that. I do agree with your subjective moralism. I think that I feel the same way. I don't think that there are objective standards of really anything. I mean, outside of maths and numbers, but that's not.
Yeah, exactly correct.
You can't moralize.
A equals A.
Yeah, that's not moral.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just relations. So, I'd say. I think it's interesting you pointed out that you'd say more people would align with your beliefs, but not as many with your actions.
Correct.
Why would you say that is?
Well, that can be portrayed through pragmatics, and in society people don't actually act within their own moral frameworks to a certain degree, and that's a testament in itself through society. Is if you were to put an apple in a cot, an apple and a baby and a rabbit in a cot, when would they slit the throat of the rabbit and consume the rabbit as opposed to eating the apple? And that's to say that if you killed an animal in front of a baby, it's innate of us to act in altruism and show compassion towards those that are in need.
We hope so.
We'd hope so. We could say that for the most part, there are people with mental disabilities or some sort of emotional disposition where they'd act not conforming with their own subjective morality. But for the most part, I'd say that most people would say that it's inherently cruel to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, then, so you do say I would agree with you that most people are on your side in terms of those beliefs. I think most people don't hate on vegans because of their beliefs. I'd say it's a lot more about the actions. So I agree that your core axioms and beliefs are probably quite universalizable. A lot of people would ascribe to them, and I do agree that a lot of people don't act on their beliefs. They just kind of stay complacent and go through their lives.
Sure.
But you have to admit that there's been a lot of backlash for your actions, stuff you've done.
Yeah,
well,
sure.
What was the first thing you did to get into the news?
So none of it was ever to specifically per se get into the news as itself.
Yeah.
So where it originally started was we decided to create DXE because we found that throughout society, throughout history,
DXE.
What's DXE?
Direct action everywhere. So we're a direct action, which is the use of non-violent methods or strategies to bring oppressors or oppressive parties into dialogue. That's the commonly known definition of direct action. So that's been throughout human rights activism, civil rights activism throughout history. We found that we're lacking that, and in more progressive parts of the world, they're using direct action and they're bringing about social change a lot quicker than there being lack of direct action. So we started, when was it? Maybe August last year. we decided to run a protest against fur, the production of fur. We ran an action at Frankie's, and that's a store in Hillary's Boat Harbour where they're selling fur, and they're proud of doing so. We got in contact with them multiple times and, you know, showed and displayed where their fur is actually coming from. They were completely ignored and silenced. At every opportunity, we tried to get in contact with them. We didn't have responses. We had some people commenting online saying that this is horrific that they're still selling the skin and bodies of animals that didn't want to die.
It's kind of fucked up wearing fur. I can admit it. Like wearing leather and fur, that's like...
It's such a stereotype of like, you know, rich culture. Like,
Exactly right.
It's got like feet on it. Like,
It's kind of messy. So, yeah, from there we ran a protest at a steakhouse in Northbridge, Outback Jack's. That created a lot of controversy.
Why was it controversial?
It's controversial because there hasn't been many protests and protests of this nature in WA. There has been in Australia, and it just so happened to be that somebody's taking a different type of action, and it made people feel uncomfortable that where they sit, and we usually find comfort in where we eat food. But when we're eating the body part of another being that didn't want to die, and I know I keep repeating myself, but it's a point to be made clear.
Yes.
People find comfort in sitting around enjoying the flesh of an animal, though what's happening is negative peace. It seems peaceful, though that animal suffered. So we went there and we made people feel uncomfortable. The intent wasn't to go there and make everybody change and spit out their meals. The intent was to spark something within the community and within society, within Perth, which is I consider to be a relatively conservative state, make them feel uncomfortable and force the dialogue of speciesism. Speciesism, which is discrimination against another species based on the species class. So that was something that was forced, and it comes from a rhetoric of you can't talk if nobody's. No change is made if nobody's talking.
Yes.
But I mean that wasn't. It's a little different to say that it's like talking. You clearly you said you're forcing a dialogue. Like you were forcing people to feel uncomfortable. I mean I definitely understand the sentiment. I think it's so important that the conversation is pushed and like just shouted. But like I think that I don't have a lot of context on that situation. But from what I've heard, it sounds like it was very, to your credit, very abrasive, very controversial, and that's obviously like what you're going for. And just personally, I'm not an advocate of encroaching on people like that, because I believe that people know what they're doing is wrong.
Okay.
To an extent, I think that people generally do know.
Sure.
That consuming animal products is wrong. Maybe they have this belief that we're the alpha species.
Yeah.
We have this.
But even though it is, I would agree that it is invasive to go scream at people while they're eating dinner that they're paid for. But maybe, all this sudden upheaval of people getting involved in vegan activism wouldn't have happened unless they did something like that.
It's called breaking the ice.
Yeah.
So, and the whole idea, sorry to interrupt if
you're right. Yeah, that was
breaking the ice, it's just, we don't necessarily agree that, and we haven't done actions of those nature since then, or at least to that scale. We don't necessarily believe that we have to make people consistently feel uncomfortable for them to make change. But we are creatures of comfort. We do make change once we are pushed outside of the bell curve. Once we deviate, that's when we make a progression. If we don't ever change, if we don't ever consider our actions or consider what we do on a day-to-day basis, we'll never change. So we're not necessarily pacifists in that way. We believe that sometimes you need an assertive action to make these changes happen. And that doesn't mean that we're trying to make the people feel, we want the people to know what they're doing is wrong. And you might say that people already know that what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah, my fear is that it'd come across like Bible bashing. My fear would be that there are people in that restaurant who are now more ingrained.
Yeah.
Are now more set in their ways. Because
Sure.
they're like, oh, fuck vegan.
Sure.
Which,
Sure. And
I appreciate that it is something that you recognize as an icebreaker moment that is not your general tempo. I can appreciate that. Of course, there are times potentially in the future even where it will get to that extent. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, I'd just like to make it clear is that that's not generally the type of action that we condone.
Sure.
This is something that it was.
No,
It wasn't actually
I
supposed to be the way that it was. It's a lot of changes have been made since then. We've taken a lot of feedback from the public. So, and that happened like 6 months ago. And I, myself and I'm not regressing in the fact that I believe that that was a bad action. I believe that it was absolutely great.
Sure.
I found that it was fantastic.
I'd be worried if you would backtrack on it.
The subsequent effects of that action have been optimal.
Yeah.
I believe, and
For your cause.
correct, for the cause. I don't believe that in itself the action was good. I believe in itself the action was neutral. It brought about some people within the restaurant that would may never turn back. I'd hope to say that they would, but they may never turn back, and they may consume animal products for the rest of their life. It would have never hit the media if that never happened.
No.
I don't think that our next protest, like the Mouchet protest, which sparked an investigation from the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development, I don't believe that that would have ever happened if we never gave the name direct action to the media, and if we never spoke about why we're doing this and our philosophical stance on the matter.
Yeah, see, my icebreaker with you, the first time I saw you, was on like 7 News or something. And you had gone to a farm that you had gotten the address of some guy's farm from, where do you say you got the address from again?
Which farm?
So this is the first time I saw you go to this farm, and some guy like pulled out a gun, he was like shooting in the air, and like he was pretty much like, you got into like a pretty physical confrontation. Where you were in the car.
Yeah, he like tried to steal the keys or something.
Yeah. Okay. So what that was we were out on public property and we were doing some investigations, because what we're trying to find is baby cows being torn away from their mothers, and this is what happens is you get they're known as bobby calves, which are male cows from the dairy industry. They are torn away from their mothers generally a day, 2 days old, 3 days old, and it's called separation. And they've got these farmers which are called slingers, which go up. They put these cows around them and they take them away, and generally they're bolt gunned in the head or have their throat slashed open. So we were there to capture separation footage where these maternal mothers scream out for their babies, and this is what actually happens within the dairy industry. So we wanted to capture this footage, and we were out the front of this property, and the farmer came out and he said to me, "I know who you are, I've seen you on the internet, you've got 2 minutes to leave the property." So from that point, I turned the car around, and I wasn't leaving because I was still there to capture I was there to capture footage of on the actual farm. And he came out with a tractor. Things got quite heated and confronting. I wind down the window and I asked him what's happening with the bobby calves, and his answer was, that's none of your business. And then he proceeded to try to grab the keys out of the ignition and strike myself in the face a couple of times. He went back into his house and grabbed a gun. And he took 2 rounds of a 12 gauge out into the open. So that's telling you exactly factually what happened.
Was there any legal implications for him or from you from that?
There was an investigation. The investigation resulted in the charges being dropped for both fronts: unlawful discharge of a firearm, to my knowledge, and assault. So
no trespassing. You didn't get a trespassing.
We're on public property. We're on the road the entire time. We didn't go past or through any driveways or anything. We didn't jump any fences. We were on the side of the road in a car. Okay. The whole entire time. There was nobody that jumped out of the car.
So he assaulted you, but the charges were dropped.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of dodgy.
Yeah.
But can you understand how scary it must be for some of these farmers? They're maybe like 4th generation farmer. That's their entire livelihood. And something like your movement is threatening everything that they know.
Yes.
Like you've got to understand how frightening that would be to some people.
Certainly, and I don't think that we should look at something being frightening for a particular set of individuals and diverge from that because it is frightening for them. I think that throughout history, we've got slaves that were picking cotton in Southern America, and big business was made out of that. Slavery was a big business. Yeah. So does that justify the actions in themselves? That's the question we have to ask ourselves, and I'd say that it's relatively analogous to those sort of situations. Is that these are industries, and perhaps we need Australia as a relatively progressive society needs to use ingenuity and social reforms to make change in these primary industries.
I saw you the other day with, I believe it was a bobby cow on your shoulders, and you were walking out of the farm with the cow on your shoulders.
Sure.
Why did you do that?
So,
And where's that cow? Did you take the cow? Like,
so in that situation, there's a lot that I can and can't say.
okay.
And part of what I can say is that the question that we'd have to ask ourselves in relation to an incident like that is, if you saw a dog being kicked over a fence, if somebody was beating a dog, or if somebody was starving a dog, or a dog was sick and nobody was actually helping the dog whatsoever, would you jump the fence to save the dog?
Yeah, probably.
So the question then becomes, what is it of the cow that creates an acceptance where the dog, you show a disregard for the person's property?
I understand. Yeah. So you're in a bit of legal strife right now, aren't you, mate?
I've got charges
Yeah.
in terms of strife. I'm not sure if that's the right word. It might come out good. You never know.
It might come out good, yeah, for sure. So you have a court date coming up, yeah, mate?
Many.
May?
Yeah. Yeah.
How likely do you reckon it is that you're going to go to jail from that?
It really depends on what sort of stance is made. It's up to the magistrate. I can't really make any descriptive claims on what will or won't happen. Yeah, that's all I've got to say about jail.
I heard Scott Morrison recently, probably 2 days ago, actually said that if I get re-elected, I'm going to make sure that these vegans who have broke the law are going to get the same punishment that a foreign fighter would get when they try to come back to Australia. Do you reckon that's fair that he's saying that? He's going to give you that sort of punishment?
I guess if you equivocate the crimes in themselves to what has been alleged trespass and burglary and stealing, as opposed to
so they're your charges: trespass, burglary, and stealing.
Correct. Yeah, and if you can, I guess, create a neutrality between what has happened or been alleged as opposed to what's happening and how they've assigned I guess an issue with what's happening overseas to what we have done, then I'd say that it's fair. If you believe those to be different and on a whole other scale, then I'd say no. If you ask me whether I think that's fair or not, of course not. If you're committing crimes and killing human beings overseas as opposed to helping animals that are in need on our shores, and you're saying that they're going to have the same punishment, I'd say that it's quite unfair, and I think most people
Do you think that bringing down the farming industry is as much of a threat as extremism is?
I'd say that
to our way of life.
That would be an oversimplification of what we're trying to achieve. I mean, the subsequent effects might be that animal agriculture ends, but agriculture in itself isn't something that we're trying to eradicate. We're trying to eradicate cruelty, and the problem is that if you remove the cruelty from this industry, the industry doesn't exist whatsoever. That's the problem.
Because they can't make money.
Well, you can't make money off animals' bodies if you're not killing the animals to consume their bodies.
Yeah.
So that's the question we've got to ask ourselves:
I guess
is
we could keep like the wool industry, maybe.
Keep the wool industry?
I guess that might stick around longer.
It may, and I guess the profit margins that would be held based on the wool industry might be, marginalized due to the fact that those animals that are used for shearing are murdered as well. So, and that does create profit. So, I guess you could say that it may, but
I just mean like in general, like that's you are right in that like cruelty is inherent to like the meat trade industry, but as opposed to it's not necessarily like a part of the wool industry. Like it probably is.
Sure.
I don't know much about it, but it probably is, but it's not necessarily. Like
so if you ask if the act itself of shearing a sheep is immoral, I'd say the act in itself of shearing a sheep
is immoral
per se is not immoral.
Yeah.
So I'd say the way that they are sheared in pragmatics is immoral. I would say that taking the wool of a sheep in itself, make that clear, the principle held alone is not immoral. But how that's worked in pragmatics and how that happens within the wool industry, the fibre industry, is immoral.
I think it definitely come down to like that you said before about like species classes, just like underlying like belief that we are above.
It's anthropocentrism.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what it is. It means that we've created a superiority complex around humans being...
It's like self-centrism in a way.
Yes.
But human-centrism.
So anthropocentrism is...
We kind of are superior in some ways because, we've made this building.
Yeah, but in terms of morals, it's different. Like, just because you have the power over someone doesn't mean you're allowed to use power.
Doesn't mean you're allowed to use it, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
that's
you may have power over me, but would we consider that it's morally acceptable for you to act on that dominion and bash me up. I'd say that it's classified as immoral. I mean, behaviorally you could do so, but in terms of the morals itself and the ethics themselves, it would be unjust to do so.
I really believe that people should eat less meat. Less of a moral standpoint, more of like a health standpoint. It's not healthy for you to eat red meat every day.
Or drink so much milk.
Or drink so much milk. Like it's bad for you. It's carcinogenic. I couldn't go without cheese, man. Cheese is pretty good.
Yeah, that's it's interesting because when you look at cheese, I think it's 87% of the proteins within cheese is casein, and casein has a massive addictive substance. It's used to have a cow consistently, get milk from their mothers and to grow into this massive bovine, and that's part of the reason why we're so addicted, or humans that do consume casein are so addicted, is it creates neural pathways and memories inside your brain. It creates nostalgia, and it's an addictive substance. Yeah, it's the same as crack cocaine, you could say.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And
cheese
we're consistently going back to it, and that's why, in the same way that we breastfed when we were young, we would consistently going back. That's because it's addictive. Yeah. It's an addictive substance, and that's common for people to say that they couldn't go without cheese. But when you look at cheese and you look at meat and you look at those sort of products, you've got recombinant bovine growth hormones. You've got insulin-like growth factor, intramurocellular lipids, low-density lipoproteins. You've got thiolates. You've got all these substances that we shouldn't be consuming. And I find it interesting you mentioned before that it's natural for us to consume animal products. So if you look at it, our eyes, we pick up on antioxidants, not swift movements. We have alpha amylase glands to break down carbohydrates. Our intestines are 7 times longer than our torso, which no other carnivore has. We can't run at the same ratio of any other carnivore. We don't have prominent canines. Our urine is alkaline, not acid. So in terms of physiological standpoint, there's no way that we are supposed to be consuming animal products. The largest cause of death in the United States can
because we're not keen to be predators?
No, we are predatorial in our behaviour, but not in our physiology.
Well, not to break down stuff.
Well, correct. Well, we can't break down cholesterol. So in terms of our metabolism, it's we can't, and that's why so many people in the United States, 600,000 people are dying in the United States from heart disease every single year.
Obesity is crazy.
Sorry?
Obesity is crazy.
Yeah, obesity is crazy, and I mean, you can be a fit person with massive elevated levels of serum cholesterol, and 600,000 people are dying. So if you're talking about,
don't they say you should eat eggs?
Well, eggs are the highest concentrated fat deposit naturally known to man. So, and that's low density lipoprotein cholesterol. So don't quote me on this, but I've heard that eggs aren't allowed to be labeled as healthy.
Yes.
So
at least in the United States.
In the United States. So I think that's something important to understand, is that we're fed through marketing, advertisement, and society.
Yeah. Man, something I heard a couple of years ago absolutely flipped my ticket. I was like, I've got to drink my milk, it's healthy for my bones. It's not healthy for your bones.
No.
It's not at all healthy for your bones. And they fed us this marketing stuff. It's like, it's white, so people will just naturally think it's healthy for your bones.
Yeah.
If it was healthy for your bones, it would say it on the label, this is healthy for your bones. Yeah. They're not allowed to say that.
Calcium itself is healthy for your bones. Milk has calcium, but that doesn't make milk healthy for your bones. Yeah. That's a very inductive way of thinking. And that's part of the problem, is it's like they try to encapsulate you into this modus ponens where they're like, all right, well, it has calcium, therefore it's healthy. Well, I tell you something.
It's opposite.
Exactly. Potassium is found in Coca-Cola. Should we all drink Coca-Cola?
Yes, yeah.
It's the same thing. So we have to focus on the food groups themselves. I'm not a nutritionist, but I probably know more than most people about nutrition. It's not even my area of expertise, based on the fact that I've looked into these things and I've taken the time to investigate and find out whether veganism is actually optimal for human health. And it seems to be that it's the case. And you're right, you're fed consistent lies through agriculture, through the agriculture industry.
I was sort of saying probably a week or 2 weeks ago about the milk dairy industry, talking about how post-World War, because they were creating a lot of dairy products and milk products for soldiers in World War II in the US. And then there's the whole industry became dairy. That's all they produce pretty much, because it's just it's the easiest thing to do, or there's these transports that can dehydrate it.
Well, caloric density as well. That's one thing they have to take into consideration. And if there's a necessity for these things to exist, they need to make this very articulate. If there's a necessity for these things to exist, I would say that I wouldn't remove the moral imperative of doing so. If you have to consume animal products, if you're on a desert island and you have to consume these animal products,
as you'd be able to eat with the age old like thought experiment, like if it's you and another person and the other person dies in the plane crash, for instance, on the island.
exactly, yeah.
You're totally, people would struggle to, but I think generally I think people would, but I think that you are morally inclined to preserve yourself a little bit longer.
Correct. Yeah, we're not in that situation.
Exactly.
We can take 2 steps to the left and buy a vegan burger as opposed to the body of an animal. It's
Yeah.
healthier for us.
Yeah.
It's better for our environment, and
Yeah.
no animals dying. So the ethical side is optimal.
What so obviously meat does give us some benefits for certain ions. It gives us I don't know how to explain that. How to
Like
articulate that.
iron deficiency probably.
Yeah.
You
So
can get it
like,
elsewhere, but
what other places can we get the health benefits from meat without eating meat? So like
Yeah.
I heard that like seeds and nuts. is
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
real
yeah,
alternative.
totally. So I mean, you can consume leafy greens for iron, and there's a difference between like irons found in plants and irons found in meats. You've got a massive amount of heme iron within beef cow flesh that can be degradant to our health. I'm not a nutritionist, and I can't make any descriptive claims. I'm making normative claims off non-truths that I have heard, or those that could be truths. It creates an overload in iron, and it can. I mean, I'm not saying that every single nutrient within animal products themselves are unhealthy. I would say that if you categorize the food groups themselves, and you look at the overall consequence of consuming those animal products, there is health implications. There are nutrients inside many things that we consume that are unhealthy that by themselves could be deemed healthy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Okay.
yeah, I mean there's not one like superfood that has everything.
No.
Everything that you need, yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, for sure. Well, I reckon we've largely covered everything. I just wanted to say something before we go. A couple guys in the Scarborough area started up this brand called Plead the Fifth. It's dope as fuck. Hell nice stickers as well. Hell nice stickers. So yeah, go hit them up. We'll put up a link to their shirts. They're having some new releases soon. Doesn't hurt my nipples at all. It's really good. There's no chafe. Sorry.
No mastitis?
Sorry. Hey?
No mastitis.
What's mastitis?
Mastitis is where, as I was mentioning before, the cows within the dairy industry, they have IGF-1 levels that go through the roof, and they produce more milk.
Okay, yeah.
From that point, when they're extracting the milk from these mother cows, it creates like sores and those sorts of things, and creates more pus within the milk. And yeah, it's pretty bad, and that's what happens to so you're not having mastitis when you've got those sort of problems. Because you're a human, you're a privileged human.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah,
exactly
yeah.
right. So no mastitis for Plead the Fifth.
No
mastitis free.
Yeah, mastitis free.
That's it.
Speaking about privilege, would you consider veganism or being able to eat vegan a privilege?
I would say that in most cases, or in any case that I can think of at this current point, it's easier to get nutrients from plant-based sources, and it's cheaper. So a sack of potatoes, a sack
It
of
is
carrots,
cheaper, is it? Okay.
lentils, those sorts of things are a lot cheaper than that of chicken breast. Or,
Yeah.
Third world countries are basically vegan, many of them, because of the poverty. So if you
Yeah.
think about it,
Yeah. So you're part of this Direct Action Everywhere thing.
Yeah.
Are you the leader of it?
So Direct Action Everywhere has been around for about over 10 years. So
Okay,
in
yeah.
Berkeley, California, myself and Arcadius are...
Birth in California, okay.
Right.
So you guys just run the WA branch?
Yeah, correct.
Okay,
It's huge. I think there's like 200 chapters or something of the sort.
around the world, yeah.
So myself and Arcadius run Direct Action Everywhere Perth. So we co-organise.
Okay, yeah, cool, nice. Do you guys have any sort of events or protests coming up?
There's a lot in the pipeline, like a huge amount, an unprecedented amount that's going to create a huge trajectory of the dialogue of speciesism. That's something that we're not shy of saying. There's big things coming that will make these look absolutely trivial. We'll look back and we'll consider these to be subordinate to what we're doing in the future. Amazing things to benefit humans and animals. So look
Yeah,
out.
we're definitely not stopping.
It's not stopping. There's no regression, despite everything that's happening. The personal burden that's inflicted on us is nothing in comparison to the slaughter and mass subjugation of animals.
Do you consider yourself a a bit of a martyr then, because you know you very well might go to jail next month, mate, and that's a really big sacrifice for your beliefs. You know, to like to have a criminal record, that's a pretty heavy thing. You know, for your future. So like obviously you must be really passionate.
Well, yeah, but like it's a criminal record that ties directly into his beliefs. So it's
Yeah.
it's not.
It's sad that there's a criminality that comes alongside acting to what most people consider moral. And I'd say that, yeah, there is a personal burden that comes along with the criminal conviction, but I would rather act within my own moral agency than act immoral and conform to unjust laws. And that's not to say that I've got complete disregard for the laws. I believe that some laws in themselves are correct and they should be pushed on society. But I believe that we need to illuminate the consequence and understand that if the consequence is that there's a massive amount of animals dying, a massive amount of humans dying, or a massive amount of pain or reduction in well-being in the world, then somebody needs to make a change. I do not consider myself a hero, and a lot of people say that. I don't consider myself to be a martyr. Will I use reasonable attempts to stop the slaughter of animals, and will I continue to do so? Your answer is a 100% definitive, undoubted yes.
Okay. So one thing I just wanted to ask before we go, I don't know if you have anything you want to say, but I was trying to picture in my head the process, what it would look like for the agriculture industry if we did transition to a predominantly vegan lifestyle, vegan culture, which would include a lot of animals dying because they're no longer being used.
Yeah, so,
so
what exactly will happen is that we don't live in a world where we can't look at this idealistically and snap our fingers and all animals are going to be living in sanctuaries. Yeah, that's right. So we can't snap our fingers and that's going to be the case. This is going to happen over a long course of time. We're expecting it to be it's a long forecast. This isn't something we're looking short-sighted and saying this needs to end very quickly. We'd like it to, though it's a slow gradient. It's going to have a linear effect. It's supply equals demand. It's very basic economics.
Yes.
If we're reducing the amount of demand, the supply will then become reduced. A lot of people say, well, won't they overrun and they'll overpopulate, while at the same time simultaneously going extinct? So you've got two sides of this spectrum. A lot of people are saying, well, they'll all go extinct at the same time as overpopulating. Well, this is something that's going to happen over a long period of time.
Yes.
And it'll give people the opportunity to make change. And I would say it's that they ought to make change. The implications are astronomical. If they do not make change and they do not stop slaughtering animals, will it be economically feasible for them to continue to do so if there's no demand? Your answer is no. It's simple.
It is changing because slowly but surely, the milk industry, it's very hard to make a profit, a sizable profit in the milk industry these days.
Yeah, and
they are struggling, man.
As the profits are skimmed, the welfare of the animals is reduced. So you don't have changes being made to help themselves that doesn't impede on the animals whatsoever. So if we talk about the quote unquote pork industry, the sow stalls get smaller, the factories get bigger, they up the price. The marginalization impedes on the animals, not on the farmers themselves. I'm not saying that farmers don't have some sort of...
Happy, right?
Sorry?
Gotta keep the consumers happy.
Keep the consumers happy, yeah. Sow stall free Caesar salads. You have, that's basically when they've got these mothers that are in these tiny pens where they can barely take a step forward or a step back.
The pigs, are they?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So that's what a sow is.
Okay,
that's what they are. And I saw the other day in Coles they had sow stall free Caesar salads. And what that means is that the sow, the mother themselves, isn't chopped up into little pieces and put into that Caesar salad. What it is they're babies. So that's not to say that the babies themselves that you're eating don't come from the mother that was in the sow stall. That's to say that the mother that was in the sow stall that gave birth to these babies. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then they take them out and then they're in group housing, they're in growing pens. And these little babies, they're taken away from their mothers as weaners. And they...
I guess good marketing is usually really immoral.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. And these are real, I think one thing that people are starting to understand, like you guys, is that these are real world issues. And in age like today, we're able to use social media and we have freedom of expression and we're able to communicate with people. It's a great thing. This is a time when we're able to refine these sort of problems within society. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to show the public the secrets that are built on an industry that is inherently cruel.
Yes.
That's all we're doing. We're conforming to public will, and we want people to know what's happening to the animals. And it's...
You want them to make their own choices as well.
Correct, yeah. If you don't have the burden of information, how are you supposed to make informed decisions?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, man, you've got to... That's the beauty about the internet and social media in general. It's like, I feel like today, I'm going to sound like such a douchebag saying this, but I feel like today that our generation is probably one of the smartest generations in history because we have so much information.
Yeah.
Too much probably, but like the amount of things that we're aware of these days, like with, you know, WikiLeaks.
Or even just access.
Yeah, man, like and the amount of
it's ease of
communication that we
use.
have.
So it's the ease of use. We don't have to go to a
It's
library and
easy.
read a book to understand something about...
You don't have to type even anymore. You can just be like, hey, what is this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
legit. And it's a really positive thing. So it's good that we're getting a lot more enlightened.
Yeah.
And more enlightenment can never lead to a bad thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, more
But ignorance is
information.
bliss. So for fuck's sake, you can't win.
Red pill or blue
Yeah.
pill?
Yeah, basically.
All right. Well, thank you so much, dude.
No worries, mate.
For having this conversation.
Yeah,
That was really enlightening. Good luck in your court case.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
all the best
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah. Fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
looking
on that.
looking forward to it.
All right. All right. Cheers, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Catch up.
Thanks.
Easy.
Cool.
Yeah. I reckon we're done now.
Yes,
yeah,
mate.
There's about 40 minutes.